Yes, 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 New Balance, yes. This is the brand new Furon V6 Plus, which New Balance are kind of positioning as a facelift version of the previous V6 Pro. Now, in actual fact, there's a lot that's gone into changing this, and I personally think New Balance could definitely have got away with calling this the V7 Pro because the entire upper is different. But why am I so excited about it? Well, with the direction that all the other brands seem to have gone, with Nike going synthetic, Adidas going synthetic, Puma might be going synthetic, but even so, their Ultra at the moment is actually woven. This leaves New Balance to fill a gap in the market for a knitted sock speed boot. Before, they were maybe just the fourth best speed boot on the market where everyone had knit. Now, they've improved what was already available in a very good boot in the Furon V6 Pro and continued to fill a gap in the market instead of trying to follow a trend and maybe getting it wrong. Looking at you, Takela V3 following a laceless trend and getting it so wrong, I just don't like that boot. However, do not get on New Balance. This is great work. What's up guys, I'm James and welcome to Boot Wizard Boot Reviews. Yes, today it is time to look at the New Balance V6 Plus. We'll compare it to the V6 Pro that came before it, see if it is actually better. I'm sure you've already gathered from my intro that I do think it is, but it's still not perfect. And some of the changes they have made have fixed some problems, but caused other small issues. So we're gonna get into all of that, let you know if you should go out and pick these up. So do remember to like this video, get subscribed to the channel, and if you can support us, please head to patreon.com/bootwizard where you can do so. But with all that out of the way, let's take a look at where the biggest changes have taken place on the V6 Plus, which is the upper. The upper on the V6 Plus is actually still made out of the fit weave technology that New Balance used on the previous generation. However, it's been modified, and on the whole, the fit weave is made up of two components. That's hydro knit and hydro skin. The knit being the base layer and the skin being the top layer. Now, it was much easier to see on the previous generation because there was a clear divide where the hydro skin was over the top here and then not here. There was an area of uncoated total fit weave, I suppose, but they've covered the whole area of the boot here, which I definitely think is a benefit. And one of the reasons they have done that is because of the change in that base hydro knit material. The change comes about, I believe, because of one of the biggest problems with the V6 Plus, not because it was bad, but because this is supposed to be a speed boot and it was very plush, quite thick in the upper, and felt quite padded. Now, there wasn't really anything wrong with that, and you can see the way that all of these little areas here where the fit weave is made up of two different areas, two different types of components. It's kind of hard to see on the black colorway, but it's raised areas that gave the boot a little bit of a pillowy, padded, plush sensation, which is fine, but not really for a 180 gram speed boot with super aggressive traction. What New Balance have gone and done this time is they've taken that same concept of the two different types of knit, and they've just used it differently and thinned out that hydro knit upper. So you can see this orange section that runs in a V, which actually looks very visually appealing, but that's also that second type of knit, which still gives you a little bit of that raised sensation, which gave you the texture on the previous version. So you still get that, especially through the toe box area, arguably one of the areas you would need it most. And then it also provides you with that additional structure that it's there to provide. And you can see it fades out through the boot as the structure is less required further up the boot. It just keeps the whole thing a little bit more together and a little bit more responsive. Now, I have mentioned that they've thinned out this upper quite considerably, and that might lead to a boot that feels less locked in, less responsive. but that's not actually the case. It still feels very, very similar. And one of my biggest concerns about this new boot was regarding the lockdown, because if we put these two boots side by side, you can see that the lacing system runs that little bit shallower in the brand new V6 Plus. And I don't love that. I just don't love it when companies bring that lacing system up. I like a nice deep lacing system to get really locked in. I love the mercurial lacing system. However, the difference is minimal, shall we say. You're not really going to notice it, and both boots actually feel very, very similar on feet, but we'll get into all of the on-feet stuff, how they fit, what sizing you should go for, in a different section of the video, so stick around for that. The material filling in the lacing system and the back section of the boot have also been updated. So you've got a brand new kind of collar design. It's only a minor change, but I definitely think it looks better and it does feel better and it looks more seamless when you get it on your feet. And this new material here actually helps with that. It doesn't bunch up as much, and again, doesn't feel as thick and doesn't feel like there's as much of a distance from your foot and the ball. And it just feels like the whole thing gives you a little bit more of a one-to-one feeling. Running around into the collar, it is just that little bit more seamless. A lot of it is visual, but honestly, I will take these visual bonuses because it looks great. The heel section is almost identical to the previous generation. And again, I will get into the fit in the heel a little bit later because it is an area that I think could have been improved from the previous generation and has been a little bit, but not a lot. The only reason I mention it here is because the improvement mainly comes from this new fit that you get in this area here, and it just seems to hold you in a little bit better. But honestly, are you going to notice that on feet? Not likely. The feeling is very, very similar between the two. So what's the big difference? Why is this better than this? Well, because even if on feet it feels very similar, which is very nice because it's very comfortable, what you might be finding is that you are a lot closer to the ball and the touch is that little bit more barefoot, which is exactly what I wanted from the previous generation. So you still get that incredibly soft upper and you just get that little bit closer to the ball. A lot of that comes from the Hydro Knit technology, which makes up most of the boot, this beautiful super soft material that has been thinned out a lot. But there's two other components we need to consider: the Hydro Skin upper and also the liner. They've both been changed, and there's good and bad to both elements of this. Now we'll start with the outer, which is this Hydro Skin top coating, which is basically a plastic top coating that covers around the boot, and you can see goes from here all the way around. This seam here is where the boot transitions. It's actually really nicely put together and looks a lot better than the previous generation, partly because these lace holes have actually been changed up as well. Your lace holes are in a different position here and you don't get this little flap. I actually quite like this because of the ability to put a runner's loop in, but having it like this is also really beneficial. But back to the Hydro Skin. Now, there's nothing wrong with the Hydro Skin itself. However, because the Hydro Knit has been kind of thinned out, it means that the skin kind of takes a more prevalent role and it doesn't seem to bind to the knit quite as much as it did on the previous generation, maybe because of a volume thing. So there is just a problem. Problem's too harsh. Something I've noticed, which you would definitely should be aware of, that the boot does tend to bend and crease just that little bit more than the previous generation. However, with that said, the change in the upper means that there's not really any extra material, which is great, but you can see how this kind of reacts and bends and responds. You just get a bit more of a synthetic-like crease from the upper on this particular boot, purely because of that top coating kind of doing more of the work than it had to on the previous generation. Now the liner. New Balance have switched the liner up here, and I don't think that the new liner feels particularly nice, particularly when you compare it to the previous generation. You have a more synthetic suede style liner in the old gen, which felt really, really premium, but did add to that kind of slightly more padded feeling. Here we have a mesh. Now what the mesh does do is it gives you a little bit more of an aerated feeling and not as much of a padded sensation. It does feel a little bit closer to your foot. I've said that about 100 times, but that's the whole thing this upper does. Brings you closer to the foot, brings the ball closer to your foot through the boot, and gives you a better overall feel and a more barefoot feel on the ball. It's all positive, especially for a speed boot, but that liner can certainly feel cheap, to be honest. It feels a little bit cheaper going into this mesh liner that honestly I don't love. It does a decent job of improving the performance, which is what is the important thing. However, I don't know if this is just my boot, but it's on both boots. There is almost like a little nick out of the liner on the inside, just up in this top third area here, just here and here. There's one on each side on both boots. They don't seem to serve a purpose, but that particular break does allow me to see through the couple of layers of mesh that make up the liner, which was beneficial for the review. But what it also does is it makes me a little wary of the durability of that liner. Is that liner gonna rip very easily? It is the type of material that might overextended use. You might not get that wonderful, in liners on the inside, when they start to break and start to rub against your foot, it's really not fantastic. So while there's a small performance benefit in switching to this mesh liner, I do prefer the older liner just from a comfort feel perspective, and it definitely feels more quality, even if I have to say that the V6 Plus definitely looks and feels like a higher quality boot than the previous generation. Okay, traction. Let's talk about how you get your traction in the ground here, and we'll keep this nice and short because I spoke so much about the upper. It is identical to what you got from the previous generation. Nothing has been changed here, and you know what? That is not a bad thing. It's all chevron blade studs. It gives you great traction in the ground. It is nice and stiff and stable through the midfoot, adding to a nice feeling of responsiveness. It's not ex-ghosted or mercurial springy, but you know what? It is still going to be one of the better ones on the market. Definitely comparable to something like the Puma Ultra, and overall for a speed boot outsole, this is really, really good. And New Balance didn't need to change it, so I'm glad that they didn't. Let's break out my slightly sticky scales. In case you don't know, I'm a bartender. These are my bartending scales. I've been making sugar syrup. Anyway, let's get the V6 Pro on the scales for comparison. Now, these were very lightweight football boots, so let's pop these on. These come in at 172 grams, which is a really lightweight football boot. It's lighter than the Ghosted, it's lighter than the Mercurial, and this is in a US size 8. Both these boots exactly the same size. So 172 grams there, and let's get the Plus on the scales. We're hoping for something that's the same. 166 grams. That is a silly light football boot. Now everyone goes nuts about the Ultra, like, oh my God, it's so light, it's so light. This is basically as light, and if you want a lightweight football boot, look no further. Well, consider the Ultra, of course, but wow, like this is impressive from New Balance. Really impressive. They do not get enough credit for developing a football boot that feels like this and is so lightweight. They're gonna get a round of applause. I'm impressed. Well done. Value for money. These come in at 210 euros, 190 pounds. Now, that is ballpark for what you're gonna pay for most top-end boots from Puma and Adidas 0.1 level boots at this very point in time, and there is nothing wrong with that. Are boots too expensive? Yes. Do these fall in the same category? Yes. But we go around in circles talking about that. But the most important thing is to compare it with what is around it. It is cheaper than all the Adidas Plus and Nike Elite level boots. Important that they are cheaper than that, because you've got to convince people to go out and buy a New Balance boot instead of picking up a Nike or an Adidas boot, which is hard to do in this day and age with their brands being so big. But then you have to consider it is slightly more expensive than what you would pay for an Adidas 0.1 level model or a Puma Ultra or a Puma Future. Now, is somebody gonna buy these over an Adidas 0.1 level model. For performance terms, there's no reason why they shouldn't. I prefer these to a few of the Adidas 0.1 level models. Should people go out and buy these instead of a Puma Ultra? Well, you know what? They perform pretty much as well, and it's just two different types of speed boot. If you're looking for that kind of soft knit speed boot style feeling that everybody's moved away from, get these. Absolutely. But it's just, you know what, it's a brand thing. New Balance aren't a big football brand. They are getting better known. They are getting more plaudits from people like me for the quality of their product. Do I think they should sell at a lower price? Yes, but do I understand that they're selling at a higher price because they want to compete with Adidas, Nike, Puma, and they want to show that they are in with the big boys, they're of the same quality, and that's why they're priced the same? I completely understand that. But I don't know how you convince people to go out and buy them. But do I think you should buy them? They're really good. If you like the sounds of what I say, yes, absolutely, go and buy them. Signing up young talent like Saka is not going to hurt them at all. Holding on to Mane is great. They've just released a new Rose Lavelle signature colorway. She's playing over in the Women's Super League at the moment. That can't hurt their exposure. So New Balance are heading in the right direction, and the pricing is on par with pretty much everything else. Okay, fit and comfort. These do look a little bit different when you first look at them kind of in this front third. It looks like this isn't quite as tapered and it's going to be a bit wider. However, when you get these on feet, they fit very, very similarly. It's hard to tell the difference. And overall, they still both fit the same in terms of width, which is decent. They're not massively wide. There's a wide fit version available from New Balance, but they will do most people. And in terms of the length, as far as a true to size boot goes, these are spot on. They are really, really solid, true to size. I have them in a US 8. Because of the softness of the upper, there's basically no break-in time. You can throw these on, pretty much go straight out into a game with very few problems. I say very few problems because you might have a heel issue. Now, the previous boots did have a small amount of heel slippage, and I do find that even the synthetic suede in the back, it is a tiny bit on the slick side, so you can get a little bit of heel movement, particularly while you're breaking these in. I mentioned earlier that this is improved on this boot, and I think it's due to the fit in this area generally, but the material, the synthetic suede, and the padding is almost exactly the same. So it is better, if not massively improved, but I also don't think it's bad enough to be a deal breaker so that you shouldn't buy the boot. Comfort is great, fit is great, lockdown is good. There are more locked in boots on the market, but I'm not going to complain too much. And overall, like I say, my only real complaints, I suppose, are the liner material, feeling that little bit cheap, having a slight durability worry on my part, and also the fact that because they have thinned out part of the upper, it does leave that outer plastic coating just doing a little bit more of the work, and you just get that little bit more creasing and crinkling. It has started to break in over the last 2 days with me, but it is there. It is worth noting. But I think New Balance done a really good job of the update here. And like I say, I think they could definitely have got away with making this a Furon V7 Pro, and nobody really would have bat an eyelid. But, you know, respect for just going V6 Plus. And I think that you've still got the options for lacing up in this top section here, which can help you with that heel issue. It's just a good boot. It's a good all-around boot. But does it offer something that nobody else offers anymore? Absolutely, and that's what's important. It offers a soft, sock-like sensation speed boot with a tiny bit of extra padding to take you away from all those raw, pingy synthetics, which not everybody wants, despite the fact that we've kind of made a big deal out of them. New Balance has a place in the market for this knit speed boot now, and I think it has customers because Nike and Adidas built those customers up. Nike gave you the knit speed boot and went, this is how good it can be, and then half ditched it. Adidas gave you this fantastic mesh speed boot and then completely ditched it, and New Balance have gone, well, we're going to keep doing what we do well, deliver it to you, and you've moved on from it, but wait, there's still a market. There's still a lot of people who want a Vapor 13 knit. Now, I'm not saying this is Vapor 13 good. That boot is God level good, but like, it's good and it fits a market. I think New Balance have been smart here by not following the synthetic trend, and I would love them to not go with synthetic when they do get to a V7, because I don't think they need to, and I think they've got a foothold in a market and potentially a way to really establish themselves in what is the biggest area of football boots, the speed boot. That was a lot of talking from me, so remember to like the video, get subscribed to the channel, and of course head to patreon.com/bootwizard if you can support us. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think of the V6 Pro? I nearly caught V6 Plus, god damn it. That just means I've been talking for too long. Too many mistakes all at once. I will see you all very soon. Put something in the comments. Support the channel.